You've probably been told that afternoon brain fog is just what happens when you eat too much lunch, or that it's simply part of getting older, something you're supposed to quietly accept. But here's what almost nobody tells you. That heavy, foggy feeling that hits you around 2 or 3 in the afternoon isn't really about how much you ate. It's about something happening deep inside your blood vessels, something that becomes a little more sensitive with every passing year. And once you understand it, that daily fog starts to make a lot more sense. Picture this. It's 2:15 in the afternoon. You're sitting at the kitchen table, or maybe at your desk, and somewhere between one thought and the next, your mind just stalls. The word you were about to say slips away. Your eyes feel heavy, even though you slept fine last night. You tell yourself it's the sandwich, or the coffee wearing off, or just getting older. Millions of people have this exact moment, almost on schedule nearly every day. But researchers who study brain aging and metabolism have been pointing to something else entirely, something quieter, something most people have never had explained to them clearly. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening inside your body during that fog, why it tends to show up more often after your mid-40s, and a few realistic changes that many people find genuinely help. Nothing extreme, nothing that means giving up your favorite foods forever, just a clearer picture of what your body is actually asking for. Let's start with the assumption almost everyone makes. You eat lunch, and an hour or two later, you feel groggy. So the story your brain tells you is simple. Food made you tired. Case closed. But if that were the whole story, a smaller lunch, or skipping it altogether, should fix the fog every time. For a lot of people, it doesn't. Some still feel foggy on their lightest eating days. That's the first clue that something bigger is at play. Consider a woman we'll call Linda, 62 years old, who started skipping lunch entirely, convinced that was the problem. The fog showed up anyway, right on schedule, even on an empty stomach. It wasn't until she looked closer at what she was drinking and when that things started to shift. We'll come back to why that mattered. Your brain is surprisingly demanding when it comes to energy. Even though it's small compared to the rest of your body, it uses a disproportionately large share of your daily fuel. And unlike your muscles, it can't really store much of that fuel on its own. It depends on a steady, moment-to-moment supply of glucose delivered through your blood vessels. When that supply becomes uneven, spiking high and dropping fast, your brain feels it almost immediately. Not as pain, not as a warning bell, just as fog. Try picturing your blood vessels as garden hoses. A young, healthy hose is flexible. It widens and narrows smoothly, adjusting instantly to however much water needs to flow through it. Over the years, with normal wear from things like blood pressure changes and blood sugar swings, that hose can grow a little stiffer. It still works, it still carries blood exactly where it needs to go, but it doesn't adjust quite as quickly as it once did. Picture it this way. You eat a lunch that's heavier in refined carbohydrates, maybe white bread, pasta, or something sweet. Your blood sugar climbs quickly. Your body responds with insulin to bring it back down, and in a lot of people, especially as they get older, that response can overshoot slightly, dropping blood sugar below where it started. Your brain, used to a steady supply, suddenly feels that dip. And because your blood vessels aren't adjusting as smoothly as they did at 25, that dip tends to feel more pronounced than it would have decades earlier. That dip is very often what people are actually describing when they talk about afternoon brain fog. Have you noticed the fog seems worse after certain meals than others? That's not your imagination. That's your blood vessels and blood sugar working together in a pattern that becomes more noticeable with age.
There's another piece to this that has nothing to do with food at all. Your body runs on an internal clock, often called your circadian rhythm. Most people know it controls when you feel sleepy at night. Far fewer know that this same clock also creates a natural dip in alertness in the early afternoon, generally somewhere between 1 and 3 o'clock. This isn't a flaw. Researchers who study sleep and circadian biology have observed this early afternoon dip across many different groups of people, even those who skipped lunch entirely that day. Part of your fog is simply built into your biology, timed almost like clockwork, regardless of what's on your plate. Turns out, your afternoon fog is usually not one problem. It's two things layering on top of each other at the same moment. Your natural circadian dip lowers your alertness a little on its own. Then, if your blood sugar swings sharply around lunchtime, that dip gets amplified because your brain's fuel delivery becomes unsteady right when your alertness was already naturally lower. It's the combination that creates that heavy, can't think straight feeling so many people describe. Many people believe brain fog simply means their brain is aging poorly. Research suggests something far more hopeful. A large portion of afternoon fog is shaped by daily, changeable factors, not some fixed, unchangeable decline. That distinction matters because it means you likely have more influence over your afternoons than you've been led to believe. Think about David, a retired school teacher in his early 70s. He used to nap through most afternoons, assuming it was simply his age catching up with him. When he started paying attention to when the fog hit hardest, he noticed it was almost always after his largest, starchiest meal of the day, and almost never on days he'd had a glass of water sitting nearby that he actually remembered to drink. Small detail, bigger impact than he expected. But before we get to what actually helps, there's one detail about hydration that tends to catch people completely off guard. A number so small most wouldn't expect it to matter at all. Hang on to that thought because we'll come back to it shortly.
There's something else easy to overlook entirely: hydration. Your brain tissue is made up largely of water, and even mild dehydration, the kind that doesn't make you feel obviously thirsty, has been linked in research to reduce concentration and slower mental processing. As people get older, the natural sense of thirst can become a little less sharp, so you might be mildly dehydrated without your body sending you a strong signal about it. If you've gone several hours since your last glass of water by early afternoon, that alone could be quietly layering onto the blood sugar swings and the circadian dip. What does all this actually mean for your Tuesday afternoon? It means the fog isn't a mystery, and it isn't a personal failing. It's your brain responding honestly to three very common conditions: a natural dip built into your biology, a blood sugar roller coaster that becomes more noticeable as blood vessels age, and mild dehydration that often goes unnoticed. None of these are things to fear. All three are things you can gently work with. Imagine two versions of the same Wednesday. In the first, lunch is a big plate of pasta, eaten quickly at your desk, followed by 2 hours of sitting perfectly still. In the second, that same plate of pasta is joined by grilled chicken and vegetables, followed by a 10-minute walk around the block. Same person, same afternoon meeting, same body. But research on blood sugar response suggests those two afternoons could feel noticeably different. That's really the heart of it. Meals that combine protein, fiber, and healthy fats alongside carbohydrates tend to slow how quickly sugar enters your bloodstream. Instead of a steep spike followed by a steep drop, you get a gentler curve, more like a smooth hill than a cliff. Many physicians recommend pairing carbohydrates with protein or fiber for exactly this reason. It's not about eliminating foods you enjoy. It's about slowing down how quickly your body has to react to them. Movement matters here too, and you don't need a formal workout. Clinical research suggests that even a short walk of 10 to 15 minutes after a meal can help your muscles absorb glucose more efficiently, which helps prevent the sharp swings that contribute to that afternoon crash. It's a small window of time, and it doesn't require any equipment or a gym membership. Just standing up and moving for a few minutes after lunch can genuinely shift how your afternoon unfolds.
Does this sound familiar? Maybe you've already noticed that days with a short walk after lunch feel a little clearer than days spent sitting right back down at your desk. That's not a coincidence. That's your body doing exactly what the research describes. Hydration deserves its own moment here too, mostly because the fix is so refreshingly simple. Remember that number we mentioned earlier? Here it is. Research suggests that a fluid loss of as little as 1 to 2% of your body weight, an amount you likely wouldn't even register as thirst yet, can be enough to measurably slow attention and short-term memory. In other words, by the time you actually feel thirsty, your brain may have already been running on a little less than it needs for a while. Keeping a glass or bottle of water visible throughout the morning, rather than waiting until you feel thirsty, can help you stay ahead of the mild dehydration that quietly builds by early afternoon. Some people find it helpful to drink a full glass of water the moment they sit down for lunch, before eating anything else. A small habit, but for a brain that depends so heavily on steady conditions, small habits tend to matter more than we expect. Here's a question worth sitting with for a second. What would your afternoons look like if that fog simply wasn't part of the deal anymore? Not gone forever, nobody can promise that, but noticeably lighter more often than not. Now, if brain fog in your life is severe, constant throughout the entire day, or shows up alongside other symptoms like unexplained weight changes, excessive thirst, frequent urination, or memory difficulties beyond ordinary forgetfulness, that's worth raising with a healthcare professional. Afternoon fog tied to meals and circadian rhythm is common, and usually not a sign of anything serious. But your own body knows things a video never can, and a doctor can run testing, like blood sugar panels, that can identify or rule out conditions such as insulin resistance or early type 2 diabetes, which become more common with age. This isn't meant to alarm you, it's meant to remind you that self-awareness paired with professional guidance beats guessing alone, every time.
One more myth deserves a gentle correction here because it comes up constantly. Many people believe the best fix for afternoon fog is simply more coffee. In the short term, caffeine really can help you feel sharper. There's nothing wrong with enjoying it. But research on caffeine suggests that leaning on it heavily to override a natural circadian dip, especially later in the day, can interfere with the depth and quality of that night's sleep. And poor sleep is one of the strongest known contributors to next-day fog. So the coffee that rescues today can quietly set up tomorrow, creating a loop. That's not a reason to give it up. It's simply a reason to enjoy it earlier in the day rather than reaching for it as a late afternoon rescue. Notice how all of these pieces connect. A better balanced lunch steadies your blood sugar. A short walk helps your body use that sugar more efficiently. Staying ahead of thirst supports brain tissue that depends on stable conditions. Being thoughtful about caffeine timing protects the sleep that determines how resilient tomorrow's mind feels. None of these are dramatic changes. None require perfection. But together, they work with your biology instead of against it. Maybe you've caught yourself reaching for a second or third cup around 3 o'clock, telling yourself it's just a one-off day. For most people, it isn't. It's a small pattern quietly repeating itself week after week without ever really being noticed. Linda, the woman we mentioned earlier, eventually figured out her own pattern. It wasn't really about skipping lunch at all. It was the iced tea she used to sip through the morning instead of water, and the big bowl of white rice she'd have without much else on the plate. Once she added a little protein to that bowl and kept a water bottle within reach, her afternoons changed in a way she said she genuinely didn't expect. Not perfect, she still gets tired sometimes. Everyone does. But the fog stopped feeling like an inevitable part of her day. It's worth saying clearly, afternoon brain fog becoming more noticeable with age doesn't mean your mind is failing you. It means your body is responding honestly to real, measurable changes in blood vessel flexibility and blood sugar regulation. Changes shaped every single day by what you eat, how you move, and how well you sleep. That's genuinely hopeful, because those are things you have real, tangible influence over.
Let's bring it all together. That heavy afternoon fog most people simply accept as normal is usually a combination of your body's natural circadian dip, blood sugar swings that grow more noticeable as blood vessels age, and mild dehydration that often goes unnoticed. None of these are permanent sentences. Pairing carbohydrates with protein and fiber, taking a short walk after meals, staying ahead of hydration, and being mindful of when you reach for caffeine are small, realistic habits that many people find genuinely helpful over time. Somewhere out there this afternoon, someone is going to feel that familiar heaviness settle in around 2 o'clock. And for the first time, instead of quietly blaming themselves, they're going to understand exactly why it's happening. Maybe that person is you. And understanding it doesn't just explain the fog, it hands you back a little bit of control over how your afternoons feel for years to come. If there's one thing worth carrying with you from this video, it's that small, steady habits practiced consistently tend to matter far more than any dramatic overhaul. Your afternoons were never meant to feel foggy by default, and it's not too late to change how they feel. So tell us, when do you notice your own fog the most? And has anything already helped you push through it? Take a moment to share it in the comments. It might feel small to you, just a sentence typed on your phone, but for someone else reading it this week, tired and quietly blaming themselves the same way you once did, it could be the exact thing that helps them feel understood. And if this video helped make sense of something you quietly wondered about for years, send it to someone who might be sitting through that same foggy afternoon today. You might be the reason their next few weeks feel a little clearer. Thank you for spending this time with Vital Theory. We'll see you in the next video. This video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider before making changes related to your diet, hydration, activity level, or any health concern, especially if you experience persistent or severe symptoms.